for holding on, guys, for the last 3 minutes while we've been sorting out everything regarding tech issues, because Dogbert's still learning.
Wow,
He's still learning, like a good boy.
It's all good. It was just no trust
It
from
is.
Lumpy.
There is no trust. There is no trust. But we're back with, I believe, episode 3 of this new Ready Up series. I'm Lumpy in the middle, and I believe to my right is Yuka. How you doing, Yuka?
Hi, I'm doing pretty good.
Good, good. And then above Yuka in the top right is the host himself, or the streamer himself, Mr. Dogbert.
Hello.
In the top left, we're going to have the stone cold Welshman himself, Mechachomp.
Stone Cold Welshman?
Yeah.
I've never been called a Stone Cold Welshman before.
I'm just thinking off the top of my head. That was the first thing that came.
I've been called Cheap Shag a Welshman before, but not Stone Cold Welshman. Hello regardless.
And then we have a new guest this week, the YouTuber known as Lionheart. How you doing, Lionheart?
I'm good, thanks. Hello.
Cool. Yeah, so before we go into any of the recent topics this week, which is going to be on the future of gaming and technology, Lionheart, tell us a bit about yourself. Obviously, you're a YouTuber, but for what and how long you've been doing it and all that goodness.
Okay. Well, I mainly cover strategy games, notably the Total War series, which I'm sure Dogbert will tell you all about for the whole rest of the stream. No. But yeah, I cover Total War games. I've been playing them since the first one came out in like 2001. Just graduated from uni with a history degree, so it's kind of all part of that. Just love my history, love my games. I've been YouTubing for about 5 years now, so yeah, just actually starting out and trying to do it full time at the moment, which is exciting and different. It's good fun.
Cool. Excellent. So, like, is there any, before we even go into anything, do you want to plug that channel? You want to plug that channel a little bit?
Yeah, so Lionheart X10, pretty much everything to do with my channel, my YouTube is Lionheart X10. I managed to grab that name. But yes, if you want to check me out on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, it's all there. Do some strategy games. Got some co-ops going on with other Total War YouTubers as well, so plenty of stuff going on. I'll whack a link in the chat as well.
Fantastic. Well,
I got blanked from being allowed to talk about Total War, so it's going to be quite an interesting. Like, how do you get started anything? But you can't talk about this main game because this guy in the top corner is going to jump in and start talking about it all day. But because I can, and because I'm not going to go on myself, what about Total War got you into that? What about that game that made it so interesting to you?
I think it's just that there wasn't anything else like that before. I'd seen kind of, well, it started off with the first Total War, which was like 2D models and stuff like that on a huge battlefield. But then when it got to 3D models, it was just insane. It's like all the kind of like the fantasies of fighting these big epic battles with thousands of troops. Like, you couldn't really do that in a game. You could be, one of like 20 guys in a sort of an RPG kind of scenario, but there's nothing I've ever seen anything on that scale. And each new Total War just lets you do it with even more units from different time periods.
But you've also went and did a history degree. I mean, obviously, if you play Total War games, I mean, it's history as best as you can get. I mean, sometimes I take a bit of liberties of it, but
yeah, I like them as the kind of like the counterfactual history. So it just gets you to a certain like stage of history. So like the Roman period, and then pretty much lets you go, do whatever you want. You can let Rome collapse, or you can play as Napoleon, and you can kill everyone. Or you can get defeated as well. I just always like the idea that, and I get a lot of people commenting on my Let's Plays and sort of saying, why aren't you following like a historical pattern? It's like, well, that already happened. Let's do something different. Why follow the same thing? Let's let's conquer the world as this tiny nation over here, just for fun. Why not?
Saying that, Mike, do you remember the original one? Like,
no, don't do this.
This is where it's going to end up. He's given us the perfect segue. Let's move on.
Okay, all right. You can have your segue and you can fly off it. I'm going to sit here and sulk.
Oh, bless.
Yeah.
Okay, so sort of moving into an interesting topic. So we're going to talk about the future of technology and the future of gaming. I don't know. I think a lot of us are a bit confused on how these are going to coincide. With obviously the future of technology being very 3D and this crazy virtual reality and all this like holodecks and what we all think is going to be Star Trek in the next 20 years. But I mean, that's something interesting to talk about. Actually, how do we think it's going to affect gaming as a whole from a gaming standpoint? Like, how do we all think that it's going to transition? Obviously, excluding the Oculus Rift, because we've already talked about the Oculus Rift last week. But how are any sort of bits of technology you guys have seen recently that are going to sort of affect gaming at all?
Well, I think that the way technology is developing with, like, for example, the augmented reality and the 3D and the Oculus Rift so far is because the technology is still very, very fresh and it's very baby steps. I think in the immediate future of our gaming, we're probably going to find that games are going to actually be taking a step back to the basics and aren't going to be kind of like leaping forwards in like in terms of like graphics and like kind of like, you know, actions on screen per minute and all that kind of stuff. I think we're probably going to be going back to more simple games while we're getting our heads around this more kind of complicated technology that we're not really used to yet, before we kind of start getting back into games that we're used to now. Like, what I'm trying to say is like maybe we're going to go back to more kind of like the simplicity of things like Minecraft. If we're like using things like Oculus Rift and like augmented reality, it's not going to be something where it's like there's a million things attacking you at once. It's going to be like really kind of basic, kind of like back to basics gaming. I think that's what I think the immediate future is going to be like, at least.
Okay.
I think the augmented reality stuff is still very risky, and I don't think any of the bigger companies are really going to get behind it. That anytime soon. I think that might be the future, but right now, and if anything, we might not be getting that far off the idea of graphics kind of hitting a plateau for a bit, and we're not going to see any major jump for quite a while. And I think that's kind of where games are kind of sitting there at the moment, not 100% sure where they want to go.
See, with the VR stuff, I would say we wouldn't see a leap in resolution, perhaps, but we'd see more progress in the way of the actual 3D rendering and everything that needs to go into the augmented reality. They would work out new graphics ways of interacting with your environment and representing it. Because at the moment, they're obviously they built for 2D. Everything's built around 2D, but now they'll be able to use a more 3D oriented system where you can use all the ways that the human mind interprets 3D, like dynamic occlusion, everything you need. Because at the moment, 2D, you can just use dynamic occlusion. That's about it. And that's when you have one object move in front of the other, and therefore it's obvious one's closer than the other one. But there's also the other types, which are completely forgotten now because my exams are over and I don't care much anymore. But those are all involved with having the two eyes and being able to see different distances. And I remember the other one, and just being able to compare it to other objects that you've seen in real life. Whereas instead of having it on your screen, and it can only be as big as your screen because that's as big as your screen goes, you can compare it a bit better to what you actually see in your everyday life, because you can literally make it as big as something you see in your everyday life. And that's where I would expect it to go. I mean, I wouldn't expect to go back to simple games, maybe for games that are solely developed for just the Oculus Rift or just the specific given virtual reality thing. But I know like Star Citizen is immensely complex, but they have every intention of including Oculus Rift support for it. So, like, there'll be games where there's Oculus Rift as a side thing. And you're right with games that are dedicated to Oculus Rift, where they will have more simplified versions.
You know the thing about, like, Oculus Rift and so on? Even though it's been, like, pushed as, like, this, you know, this is the future, this is the way everything's going to be, it kind of hits the same kind of problem that 3D does, which is, first of all, a lot of it kind of comes across as a novelty and kind of could distract from the actual main game. But another one, it makes you feel ill right now. If you play for too long, and if that's something, it's literally not fixable. That's always going to hold it back.
Well, I feel like that's just almost a generational person thing, because like you'll find an older generation of players can't use high refresh rate screens, and they can't use things that move too much because they get motion sickness. Whereas I've never gotten motion sickness from playing a game. I've never gotten, like when I was in Japan and my uncle and me both got into these big pod things where you effectively piloted a transformer kind of thing.
Yeah, the Gundam pods.
And he got really motion sick in it, and I was absolutely fine. And I think that might be due to the fact that I'm pretty much used to playing games, and I'm used to that. And if a new generation of kids was used to wearing this thing on their face and not getting sick, then I don't think it would have been a problem for them.
I think one of the things I can tell at the moment with the Oculus Rift, because a lot of the Oculus Rift stuff is like you're on a roller coaster sort of deal. Yeah. And I think it's also a mental thing when like you're in a convention center and then you're on a roller coaster. Doesn't quite compute because you think my brain is knowing that I'm inside I'm on a chair in a convention hall on the ground, and now I'm suddenly feeling like I'm going up and down a roller coaster. I think it's that sort of mental adjustment you've got to take into account to sort of get over that.
That'll be another thing down to developers to really find ways to properly immerse somebody in a completely all-encompassing world with this headset on their face.
Yeah. I just got a freaky idea of like if they're combining like Oculus Rift plus like augmented reality and like for example like the PS4 camera, and like you've got like a view of your room and it like maybe like a Silent Hill game and there's like zombies coming in your room and you can see that it's like in your living room on the screen, but it's like I don't know.
Oh right, so you mean like putting cameras on the Oculus Rift itself and
well, yeah, like you have like
okay.
your camera for the PS4, and that's like showing your room on the Oculus Rift, but then the Oculus Rift is also augmenting in extra stuff.
I just think the one thing I want from augmented reality is the one thing that as a kid would have been the greatest thing ever: Yu-Gi-Oh! In augmented reality.
Yes.
Done. Yes. I think everyone here, besides the old man Dogbert, would want this.
Oh my god, whoa, Jesus. I'm like sitting here comfortably and I'm just getting solid immediately.
First company that does that, I will give them all my money.
Oh, seriously. God. Yeah,
I'm on it.
It is literally the one thing that I think a ton of people would love to see. It would just be like, if they did it to make it like the cartoon, the anime, it would be literally hands down like a great like popularity and just would make money.
But just going back to something Dogbert said about comparing the Oculus Rift to 3D and the problems that faces, they have 3D like glasses, like that you literally. I'm not sure, I can't remember how they work exactly, but it was an immersive. It was like an Oculus Rift. You put it on your face and you watch the movie, and that's how it does the 3D effects. Basically, one of the problems with that, and one of the reasons it wouldn't ever take off, is because watching movies was primarily a social experience, and you want to be able to sit with all these other people and watch the movie and discuss it while you watch it. And then if you put this thing on your face, you couldn't see the other people and you couldn't talk to them at all. But with the Oculus Rift in gaming, like I don't know, I don't tend to sit in a room with other people and play on my computer while they sit around and watch me or something. So other than in LAN events. Yeah. But even then, I'm not paying attention to the person sitting next to me. I'm probably still talking to him on TeamSpeak, weirdly enough. So I just don't think that would be the same kind of problems. I don't think it would be looking at the same problems.
Did you guys ever see that thing from CES a year ago? Not recently, just gone, the one before, where I can't remember the TV manufacturer, but they built a TV that essentially could allow two people to watch it at once.
Yeah.
But watching different things. So you'd essentially be able to watch, say, a concert, and then on the other person could be watching like Breaking Bad or something like that. Like, I just don't know how.
Samsung.
Was it Samsung? I can't remember exactly, but yeah, it's just interesting to see like how that comes into it.
They'd
have to wear their own headsets, wouldn't they?
Yeah, like how it worked, because I worked in a shop where we sold these, but it was they developed it also for like two-player gaming. So for example, like you're playing a racing game, and one person wears a pair of like kind of 3D glasses, which is like the red pair, and someone wears like the blue pair, and the red pair can see the full screen of their car driving, and then the other person can see the full screen of their car driving. But if you take the glasses off, like the screen's all like all blurry, so it means that you can have extra spectators, but it means that you can play together while having the full screen experience and not having to do a split screen. That's one of the examples I've seen.
I can only imagine that would work even better with the Polaroid glasses instead of the red and green ones, red and blue even.
That means there's no more. Sorry, Lionheart. There's no more of this. Like one person gets the big top screen, and they two people get the little ones.
Yeah.
A completely different thing. I remember seeing. I think it was for Battlefield 3 when that came out. They built this whole kind of like almost like a treadmill thing, where they had the game like projected up on screens all around them in a dome. I think it was featured on the Gadget Show or something like that. Yeah. And they followed that round and just thinking about like augmented reality, like how big a kind of like is your gaming like area going to become with all these kind of extra add-ons like the Oculus Rift. Obviously that's something you can just slap on your face and it's not that big, but I mean if you really want to take it to the next level and I'm just going to go to my gaming treadmill room sort of thing and jump on with huge screens everywhere.
Gamers could literally replace any kind of gym they had any intention of building and just put one of those VR things in there and they'd be fine. This is something we discussed last time.
Who needs a trampoline? They need a trampoline. Get a gaming dome.
Yeah.
I saw that. Yeah, that was the one Panky had a look at, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a very small version of the original, and it was using some weird software and weird hardware, like they were
Yeah.
using Macs.
Okay.
Yeah, they were. It was quite interesting to see, but it hadn't got all the whole like paintball guns. Like this is another thing that's coming into it. Like, how can I harm myself? This is where gaming is also going, where it's like if I get shot, I get hit with a paintball. Like, okay, cool,
Yeah.
but people are going to take it to the next level. Like, if you get like zapped or something, like electrocuted, and then someone's heart stops and they have a cardiac
They've already
arrest, and it all goes everywhere.
There's that
There's
jacket,
a-
isn't there?
Yeah, the jacket.
Yeah.
Which you get shot and you get like a really
this
hard
jacket.
vibration or something like that.
Oh,
that
God.
like rumbles on like your chest or something like that. So you get shot in the heart. Somebody was saying that when they were testing out, that like, they did probably need to tweak the like vibration sensitivity because it was quite. Like, I mean, it's probably like going out and playing paintball because that does hurt. Like the next day, you just find all the bruises, and it's like, well, you know, you come back in the next day, and it's like, what happened to you? Oh, just playing a game of Battlefield 4 last night. Got pretty intense. Just got shot a few times. Don't know what would happen if a grenade hit you.
Yeah, grenade hit you. You're just going to end up like.
I was about to mention the a jacket that lets people hug each other over the internet. So literally, the jacket you put it on, it measures your temperature and how much pressure you're putting on and everything like that, and it mimics it on the other side. So it'll heat up to the same temperature. It'll put the same pressure in the same place as you are and stuff like that.
How can you apply pressure? Do you have to like sit up against the wall and it's like like pressure on the wall?
No, I don't know. I don't know how it worked. I don't know. I guess it's literally you hug the jacket, as it were, and it provides a reactionary force.
As long as the next thing isn't like that Big Bang Theory kissing machine.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that too.
That's
And now
all kinds of.
this is where like cyber sex gets taken off into the next.
Yuka, they're giving me a way in. We're talking about this. What's going
No,
on?
not again. Not how the creepy of last week.
Shut it down! Shut it down!
Okay.
Wait,
let's
4K
see.
TVs
No way to interrupt. Right. I think Lumpy was mentioning Yu-Gi-Oh earlier.
Yes.
And kind of anime and stuff
Any
like that.
chance for you to get an anime in any chance?
Well, you guys invited
Like a
me on the
show.
show to be the variety, so whatever Pokemon.
Oh, is that why we had you on? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, basically, basically, I wanted to mention that there's been a lot of anime recently, more popular as well, but quite a few years ago, that kind of incorporated the whole virtual reality in video games. For example, the Dot Hack series, and more recently, Sword Art Online, where the kind of concept of the series is that the main character is like in kind of like our near future, playing a video game where you put on a full headset and you're immersed in the game and you feel like you're actually in the game. But then something happens and the character gets stuck in the game. Like they can't log out, they can't control their limbs to take the headset off, they can't and then other players like get stuck in the game and stuff like that. And it's just like interesting thinking that this is a concept that's been talked about a lot in like kind of science fiction and anime and stuff over the past few years, and now we're actually getting to the point where technology is actually happening. Where like stuff like this could be possible. Like obviously, I don't think we're gonna actually get stuck in video games, but we've obviously seen lots of stories about like, for example, people primarily in Asia in like internet cafes who like die because they're playing games nonstop and forget to eat. And it's like, how immersed are we gonna get in these games once they're actually on our head, and like we can't actually see, the system clock in the bottom corner, and you can't actually like see that you've got 10 missed calls on your phone because you've got these headphones and this like this thing covering your face. Like it's kind of scary thinking where games are gonna go, but also at the same time it's kind of exciting. So
Just when you said we're not going to get stuck in games, I bet you there's going to be some poor guy who puts it on his face and cannot figure out how to get it off. Can I get it off, man?
It becomes a face hugger and just like.
I never got this, and obviously it happens plenty of times, and there's some horrific cases of it over in Korea, especially of players, just getting so caught up in it. But even as someone who gets quite immersed in his gaming and so on, forgetting to eat and go to the bathroom seems like something that isn't because you're too immersed in the game, is because there's either something wrong with the person or because they're incredibly lazy. I don't buy that it's just a game being too immersive. Anyone can step back.
I mean, people are going to... Go on, mate. Go on.
Okay. I read ages ago about a couple in South Korea who neglected their own child, their own baby, and it died in favour of raising their virtual one.
Mm-hmm. Well,
in
I
a
don't know if it
gaming
was the
cafe.
child.
It's insane.
I think the virtual child thing was put in there kind of just to make the story sound
Possibly.
even
I wouldn't
I
be
worse.
think they're just
surprised.
neglecting the targets of video games pretty
Yeah,
much.
yeah,
Like
and
they
yeah, it
addicted to
happens.
EverQuest or something.
It has happened, and games is being used as, oh, how horrific is this? Stuff like that happens around the world in in society, and it's not just to do with the games; it's the people. And
Yeah,
Yes.
I have to believe that if you give someone a way to kill themselves, if you give enough people that way, some moron's going to manage it. Like it's the same as saying with guns. Like someone's going to manage to shoot themselves in the head, even though that's not the intention behind the.
I mean, there's
That is-
nothing stopping them, like people taking the next approach of like, well, how can we adopt the theory of how people are putting in self-induced comas in hospitals? Obviously, their body's still got to get nourishment to some degree to keep them in a healthy state of well-being. So people are putting in if this whole thing does
Hook
come
themselves
about,
up to
they go,
IVs.
no, seriously, they will. They'll hook themselves
Yeah.
up. It'll become like
I'm
Inception.
surprised.
When you go into in the Inception, when you get down that bit into the
Yeah.
hooked up to this massive doohickey, like it's ridiculous to think that could happen though, because people are that crazy and that sort of I mean, it's something that I could consider if I wanted to play that game for that long, but I'm not that insane.
On a
Yeah.
similar note,
Sorry,
but
go
a
on.
bit more positive, sorry. There is actually technology at the moment which is for people who are stuck in I think it's what's called trapped syndrome or something like that, where you're trapped in your body but you
Oh,
can still
yeah.
move your eyes. But there's technology where it can read your eye movements, and then you can paint or you can type, or I
That's
think
what
they've actually
Stephen
started
Hawking
developing games
uses.
as well. Yeah. But I remember reading an article about recently where I think they developed some simple games or some painting software that people could use like that as well, and it's pretty cool that kind of gaming's linked in with that, and that people who do have disabilities are going to be opened up to more games in the future, with the developments of this technology.
Avatar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what we're doing, we're going from one extreme to another. So when we talk about Oculus Rift, this is something happening now. The future's it's here.
Yeah.
It's not the future. It's
Yeah.
The future is here.
Yeah. So there you go. It's here. It can be used, and if the big developers want to jump on board and make games for it, then and add support to it, it's there. No problem. And then we go to the extremes of here's the Matrix and how this is gonna come and it's gonna happen. And you know what? It is. I mean, the idea of gyms, it's got music videos going on while you're sitting there on a treadmill. That's a matter of time before you have mini games that you're doing while you're playing Angry Birds while having a run. That's going to happen. That is the next.
That's already happened.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
these things. all
Have you
just
not
logically-
been to the gym where they have the cycle? They have those cycling bikes, and you can program in a route, and you can race your friends on this cycling bike. It's awful to control, but it exists.
Implying Dogbert goes to the gym.
It's never been to the gym.
It's a great way of combining though, gaming and entertainment to kind of getting people motivated to exercise. If you go to the gym, you're cycling, and if you can race against other people there as a bit of motivation, then yeah, it's just brilliant.
And more importantly, it makes it a better experience because then you've got people around you can compete with, and it just becomes fun. I mean, you're getting to the point now where it can't be that far away, where a LAN cafe, in its old sense, will mix in with something like a gym, and it'll work together, and it'll be a better experience for everyone. But then you've got the other extremes on where's gaming going, and this is where it gets into the Matrix territory, where people will give up on real life and just go into video games. And I mean, you have it on a kind of basic level right now, but you're talking the ultra kind of scientific nightmare, which science fiction nightmare, which is in Star Trek and in the Matrix and all that. Now, as bad as that may be, then there's the benefits of stuff like that. Old people's homes, for example. Our generation is going to be the one that goes and hooks up and plays video games in an old people home.
Yeah.
Not just sitting there watching TV.
Yeah.
That is the future. And for good or for bad, it's going to work as long as everyone isn't abusing it. And that's the same for any technology we develop.
I could just imagine Dogbert going to an old people's home and being like, I want 100 million K broadband, and be like, this is unacceptable. Just demanding faster internet.
The funny thing is that once we are actually all at the age where we're going into old folks' home, It is going to be full of gamers, and we are going to be sitting around like playing multiplayer games.
Just imagine, a 90-year-old one of us. So, you stupid faggot, you stupid.
Such a noob.
You're
Just
gonna
like I owned you.
now we're all like, oh, bloody 12-year-olds on COD. It's going to be, oh, damn 90-year-olds.
Yeah.
They can't even shoot straight. What are they doing? Oh,
Turn your wall hacks off, Harold.
I'm hoping for the day, right, where we conquer aging and I'm like 180 and I'm playing like
yeah.
Battlefield 2080 and it's just like, oh God, sick of all these 8-year-olds coming in here. I'm so much older than them. I should be getting better treatment. Who do they think they are? I was there when we had 56k. Now they've got like gazillion gigabytes straight into
people
their
used to
phone.
actually die. But
Oh man.
there's a group of scientists who found an enzyme called telomerase, which replenishes your telomeres on the end of your DNA, and the telomeres are when your cells divide, they get shorter and shorter and shorter, and that's what causes the decay in your organs and everything that makes you an old person, effectively. And they found this enzyme that replenishes these telomeres, which effectively eliminates aging. And they're expecting to have developed this for use within like 10, 15 years.
Sweet.
And welcome to the biology part of ReadyUpTV. Welcome.
The problem is there's a cut-off age where the people just about our age, just around there, is where the cut-off age is for being able to take advantage of this. So we may be too early. So
God damn!
we
Don't
might
tell
just
me
miss
that.
out.
Don't tell me that.
Yeah, let's go into crystal
wanna
stasis
know.
right now.
Yeah, let's do it. Someone's got to be on that, right?
Yeah.
Can we put like, I don't know what, 20 NVIDIA Titan graphics cards together? That'll power it, right? Something like that.
Yeah. Just whack them together, mate.
I did actually remember seeing an article. I mean, it must have been about 5 or 6 years ago, but it was an orderly in a hospital, and the X-ray machine they had there was severely underpowered, and he knew like a fair bit about building his own PC, so he like brought in his own NVIDIA graphics card from home and slapped it in the X-ray machine, and it boosted it up and made it a lot more efficient.
Wow.
That even works.
I thought it was
Nvidia's
pretty
sponsoring
awesome.
Hospitals in the future now.
Yeah, NVIDIA hospital. Like you'll go like, are you going to NVIDIA? Do you have an NVIDIA card at home? You can only go to an NVIDIA hospital.
Yeah, like shipping it with
Did you-
price
Sit in
plans.
hospital.
Yeah.
Did you say it was
Health
a,
insurance.
Did you say it was a
Like-
nurse?
Yeah, something like that, I think.
I find it a bit worrying that nurses in the medical field have access to the inner workings of an X-ray machine. To be honest,
It was 5 years ago. It changes.
About
Like,
4
like,
acres.
Mecca, it's the NHS. Like, come on.
It's not Bupa.
And tonight for some political commentary on Radio.
Oh yeah. Why not? So, but I'm so there's so much out there. And there's, I mean, like I said, we've gone from like one extreme to the other of like the Matrix and all this other crazy stuff. Like, we're gonna say about it. In the next 10 years, what do you think we're gonna see? Because I mean, a lot of us have always been waiting. In 2020, we're gonna have hoverboards, and everyone I think here is like, until we have hoverboards, it's not the future. Okay, just to put that out there, it's not the future until we have hoverboards. But where do you see it? Like 10 years? Like in 10 years, we had so much like nothing, or we could have loads.
10 years,
the-
there's not going to be a
go
big
on.
difference. Consoles, first of all, limit PCs massively. I think in 10 years, maybe we'll get a new console generation. And then
Right,
maybe
well,
there'll
this-
be a leap. But I
this is the
honestly don't
subject.
think it's going to be that big. We're held back. Well, PC gaming, at least, is definitely bottlenecked and held back by consoles.
this is something I wanted to actually talk about, was processors and how we're reaching a limit at the moment. So there's a generation is every 3 years for processors, and we're very, very near the limit of not being able to make processors any faster. At the moment, the individual transistors in a processor are at 22 nanometers. And just as an idea of scale, the width of a human hair is 100,000 nanometers. So these individual transistors, there's billions and billions of them on a processor. It's just 22 nanometers in size. Previous generation was 50 nanometers. But you can only go so small due to the various ways these that these transistors actually work. So like you need to dope them so they'll actually conduct, and then you get electron tunneling where the electrons don't give a shit and just go do whatever they want and all that kind of stuff, and you just can't make it smaller. So there's going to be a point where we can't make processors any faster, and that's going to hit us within the next 10 years, and they're going to have to do some radical stuff just to get it, just to keep going, as it were, because because the continual progress in computers is something that drives the global economy. And if this goes to show my diagram, you want to see a diagram?
Lord.
Okay, but
Prepared earlier.
Hope you guys have been ready for a Monday chemistry / biology
This
/
ain't
physics
chemistry, mate.
lesson.
This is
There will be a test
nanotechnology.
afterwards, by the way.
That's a
God.
CMOS transistor. Some of those using microprocessors and IC design. But anyway, progress in processing and all this stuff like Moore's law. Everything will double in or halve in size, double in processing power, or half in price every 2 years, every 18 months, isn't it? But that's going to hit a limit, and that's what drives the economy. If that goes to pot, everything goes to pot because there's so many jobs completely contingent on things continuing to progress. Like, if there's no new graphics cards, who's going to sell graphics cards now? If there's no new processors, who's going to sell processors now? All that kind of stuff is going on. Yeah, I said Moore's law already. But and that's all driven by gaming. Like, all of the progress that we want is driven by gaming. There is no other industry as processor as intensive, as computer intensive, as massive as gaming. And I had one guy in the lecture at the time saying, "Oh, I find that hard to believe," and everyone else in the room was, "Shut up! You don't know what you're talking about," because that's what drives it. That gaming just drives. Gaming is effectively responsible for the entire economy of planet Earth. There we go. That's it right there.
Yeah.
But,
Win.
Power to the gamers.
one of the ways to overcome this processor size limit is to look at quantum processing, which is a whole nother ball game and is insane. Just as from what little I understand of it, they'll use qubits instead of bits for quantum bits, and 500 qubits is equal to.
Hang on. My brain is not advanced enough to process this.
An processor for your brain.
Yeah, man.
You have bits at the moment, and they're 1 and 0, and each one of those is a bit. In quantum processing, you'd have a qubit.
I dropped out of university, man. Like, I can't take this.
I'm just trying to get the scale now. Is 1 qubit, so 500 qubits is equal to 2 times 10 to the power of 500 bits, which is insane. Which means we can do whatever the hell we want with quantum processing. I just looked at pictures of Dogbit's face, and it's staring right into my soul and making me laugh.
It does just follow me wherever I go. It's there. I can't get away from it.
You can't see what we can see, but it's pretty horrific.
Yeah.
No, it's amazing. So quantum processing, huh? No, but okay. Here's another question though, because a lot of look at a lot of the Titan, for instance. The Titan is like one of the most recent, I believe, NVIDIA graphics card. It's fairly chunky. It's quite a big card, especially if you have like 2 of them. Now, because of obviously this whole like it gets double in processing power, it gets smaller in size. But there's one thing that hasn't quite sort of transitioned over is where do you see PCs, for instance, or just systems in general, being smaller, or do you still see them being quite big for like the higher processing jobs? Because that's something that's never quite made sense. It's like, where do you see this whole like, okay, it's going to be ridiculously fast, but it's not going to be small. It's going to be huge.
I'm actually going to really annoy you and throw it backwards again. One of the problems with the processors is heat dissipation. So the cooling systems in future may well get down to using liquid nitrogen. Which will mean you will have massive computers just for the processor and cooling system in comparison to everything else.
This is something that makes no sense. It's like, it makes sense because it's obviously, it works, but obviously like 95% of like high-end graphics cards are a lot of them are just, the heat sink itself is the chunky bit. The circuit board can be anywhere in the range of like fairly decent size to, not at all. But yeah, it's interesting because it's, that's one thing a lot of us are seeing nowadays. Phones are gone from like quite chunky to small, and now they're actually getting bigger again. I mean, like this is the Nexus 5, and it's actually quite big compared to what it is. Whereas, everyone still thinks now, oh, they're getting so much smaller, and it's just like...
Mind you, with mobiles, people are actually like, your mobile's so tiny. Whereas it used to be,
exactly.
wait, what? Yeah. I thought smaller was the good thing.
Yeah, it's like, I'm pretty sure 5 years ago the insult was your phone looks like a brick, not
your
phone looks like
now it's if it doesn't look like a TV screen, then you just haven't bought the right one.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's bizarre.
But then I guess the form factor is becoming like thinner. It's just you want kind of more real estate to actually be able to game with, because more people are like, oh yeah, I want to be able to watch stuff on the go rather than being like squinting at a small screen. But I guess the actual stuff inside is just like you're getting thinner and thinner phones each year, basically, couple of months.
There's a new phone that's on the market at the moment. I don't know too much about it. I just heard it in passing recently, but it's like flexible. So like it means like
that's a great selling point. How far can it bend?
But like that kind of also brings us on to something that someone's mentioned in the chat, I think, about the curved televisions.
Oh yeah.
So that's like another thing that might be kind of coming into gaming soon. Is like instead of it just being like your standard dimensions, it's going to be like kind of an IMAX type thing.
Well, that's the dome. That's effectively the dome.
Yeah, it's just going to be in your own bubble, aren't you?
Yeah.
Well, this is the thing as well. Like you see people who's like if you ever go on like Reddit / station, I think it's like game stations or something like that, where they have like the 3 monitors that are like completely like what's the word, like they're completely level. There's nothing like between them, and it is like in a bend.
Yeah,
but
borderless.
When we're now going to see those sort of monitors, instead of going like aspect ratio like that, they're actually going to go like lengthways wide. So it'd be interesting to see. I mean, 4K televisions are sort of slowly becoming normal, but again, I don't know how that will actually affect home cinema setups and stuff like that.
It's actually kind of funny. The first time I saw a 4K television, I was in Japan for the launch of Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn, and they were showing a demo of it on the 4K television, but the demo reel that they were using wasn't actually that high quality, so it wasn't actually taking advantage of the quality of the TV. So it was like
crazy.
It was like, come on guys, like this is like 720p. Like what's going on?
That's gonna be fun convincing movie producers and film and everything to start using 4K cameras that can actually do that. Mind you, they jumped on 3D easily enough, didn't they?
Well, yeah. I mean, have any of you actually seen any 4K? Because there are actually 4K videos on YouTube. There are actually some 4K videos.
Yeah, I've tried watching them, but I'm still using a 1080p monitor, so it didn't really make a difference.
This is
I've seen it. Well, sorry, that means no. Where I used to work, they had a 4K TV on display, and they were using a 4K demo reel to show it. And I walked past it, and I'd actually had to stop. I think my jaw dropped. It was like, if I felt like I could like reach into the television, like fall into that world, it was like really, really bizarre. It's really quite mind blowing when you actually get to see it in person. Definitely.
What game do you think could do with the biggest technological leap? What game is like on the verge of something amazing if it just had that extra bit of either graphical?
Star Citizen. I'm not even joking. Like flying a fucking spaceship with all this VR technology would be amazing.
It depends on where you want to go with it, because obviously you either have the ultra realism or the ultra fiction. Like Avatar looked incredible on like a number of different like setups, like be it IMAX, 3D, just standard cinema 2D, and that's where do you want to go with it? Do you want to go like ultra fiction or like ultra realism? Because the ultra realism is probably going to be a lot harder to like try and replicate outside of just filming someone doing it.
Yeah.
Whereas in the fiction side of it, you have a lot more imagination that can go into it.
I would have said that they wouldn't be looking so much at realism or fiction as they would immersion, because there's a difference. Like with immersion, you have a sort of a suspense of disbelief, I believe it's called, where you deliberately go into this world expecting certain things. Like you go into Lord of the Rings and you say, right, I expect magic here. I expect Gandalf to be able to make his staff shine for no reason. However, I don't expect Frodo to start doing loop-de-loops and being able to bend swords with his arms, because that's breaking the laws of physics. I don't expect Frodo to be able to travel in time, kind of thing.
Would have really made the whole films a lot quicker.
Yeah.
all there is one word: eagles. Done.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I mean. Like, there's a suspension in disbelief where certain things are okay, but other things aren't. Like, I can't watch Dragon Ball Z because, I can accept they're flying and they're using their ki to fly. I can accept that they're really strong. That's certainly fine. But I cannot accept that 1 minute he can use a Kamehameha to propel himself upwards, and the next second he can use a far more powerful Kamehameha and doesn't feel any kind of backward force whatsoever. Because that's just inconsistent. And
the thing is, though, with Dragon Ball Z and stuff, this is how the game. This is literally how we're gonna function it. People with really long hair and who can scream for the longest win. That's it. That is literally Dragon Ball Z.
And if they have a magic bean which can instantly revitalize them, that's it.
Yep, doesn't matter. That literally Dragon Ball Z is summed up by those three things. Done.
But then,
sorry to anybody that
screaming long hair and beans.
Game like a Gundam game with like that the VR stuff. That's been done like before like everyone started even thinking about this. You had that kind of setup where you buy the joysticks and everything, and you have that like battle setup. So that game will do well. What, sorry?
But Japan have got the whole, like Mecca said earlier, they have the whole, in arcades, they have an entire floor, literally 16 like massive pods, 8v8 type deal, where literally you just jump in them and you actually man a Gundam like you would see in the anime, where you literally like you feel like the person's sitting inside the middle of a Gundam and you're running around doing all that stuff. It's crazy.
I'm surprised they haven't built them by now, like actual Gundams. I mean, they're trying hard, but it's just it's only a matter of time, I think.
They've got a to scale Gundam in Odaiba, in the center of Tokyo. It's like right next to this massive shopping mall.
It's huge.
Because why not? It's basically, really cool. I guess it's that thinking about it.
But it's not as good as the one me and my brother built out of Lego.
Oh wow!
Was it like 2 stories high?
It's full size.
I've got some photos of it.
It was pretty tall.
It's probably hurt more people when you walk over Lego.
Pictures or it didn't happen. Lionheart.
Yeah. Where'd you picture?
Find the old camera.
Yeah.
Bust out the old what are they called? Negatives. That's the one.
Yeah.
Negatives out.
Find it.
But I mean, like a mix of fantasy in just general, like games that should do well with like this kind of technology, like.
Yeah, man.
Awesome.
It's a robot crotch there. Really good picture. Gundam crotch. Like games like I never played it. Like I think it's Dynasty Warriors, where have you got the massive armies around you, or Mountain Blade, for another example. What was it? Were you a robot crotch?
That's an awesome robot crotch, though.
Yeah.
That crotch.
Best robot crotch EU.
That crotch.
Damn.
So okay, so they can build it scale models. So how much until we can put like the mechanics inside then just to make it walk? Don't need to worry about the missiles. Let me drive it.
To be honest,
yeah, mechanics, that's the easy part. It's the actually balancing and writing the AI effectively to get them to walk without breaking the entire fucking thing. That's the really difficult part.
They've got AI for walking robots in Japan as well right now.
That's again the easy part on the smaller scale, because they've got it's fairly easy, but most of the ones that walk, they tend to learn. They write in a bit of code, They write a lot of code that effectively lets the robot learn how to walk. But when you're doing it on a big scale like a Gundam, and the first time it falls over, it not only breaks completely, but crushes everything it hits. It might be a little bit financially unstable to be able to actually start doing it
surely there's enough in you got like Nevada desert. Take us to Sahara. You can't really hit it. The sheer weight of the Gundam, when it falls over, it will break, and you'll have to rebuild the entire thing. Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, I just don't like. This is something that always sort of going into like robotics a little bit. We always see these every year. Every year, a new one will come out of some robot walking up a step, like a white robot walking up a step, and everyone's like, "Yes, golf clap that."
Because science be hard.
Okay, yeah. Oh God, yeah. But like, I'm just saying, surely we've got to a point now where that's like, okay, that's like a normal thing. Now we're gonna move on to like, I don't know, running, maybe.
Oh god, they've got these really creepy like robot dogs that can run.
Oh, the mules, the ones the American Army are making to like bring ammunition.
Didn't they deliberately do it because they didn't want them to get attached to a dog that may end up dying? And what happened is the soldiers got really attached to the machines. That's when they would go back to save them. That was the entire purpose, was so they didn't get attached to it, and then they actually go back and they
something like that would be like, it is that mental attachment.
Yeah. Like so lifelike. You can't tell the difference between a machine that's walking and an animal in terms of emotional attachment.
This is where it starts to get creepy anyway, because like we're getting onto robots and so on, and we're kind of stripping kind of a little bit away from the game. But at the same time, as soon as you see a helmet like that, the first thing you think of is, I can't wait to play in a big robot at home. with my bodies, because that's been around for ages. But then you've got like even creepier things, and it's something that gamers and science fiction have been like playing about with for ages. Is that people are using Xbox controllers right now to control like UAV drones with like missiles and bombs and killing people, and that's been in science fiction since Ender's Game and before that. And right now, it's happened, and it happened before anyone was just like, "Oh, yeah, that's a bit creepy, isn't it? You can just stay at home now and bomb people around the world."
It kind of relates to a topic, the very controversial topic that I'm sure most of us disagree with, about the violence in video games and video games causing people to become violent. And I remember when the Wii U first came out, a lot of people expressed, or in the media rather, expressed a concern that if kids were getting used to the idea of like whacking this remote when they're trying to like hit a monster, then is that going to give them the muscle memory that when they're in real life they're going to like get confronted with a problem and they're going to try like hitting something instead of actually dealing with it with their words. And it's another thing that I think is going to be a concern with virtual reality as it becomes more prominent. Is this going to start affecting kind of the younger generation who are more impressionable with video games? Are they going to become more aggressive because they're used to actually using their hands and moving their entire arms and their bodies and stuff instead of just a few buttons with their thumbs? It's
That's
kind of a
thought.
concern that could...
Well, as long as it's a dragon, I'm not a person. That's what you got to say.
Exactly.
It's like, as long as it's not like a human being. This is the thing of a whole, like, this is where like games like Manhunt, for instance, like get bad press and could get even worse press. Is if someone like VR comes along and this whole like, oh, you can actually physically strangle someone to death.
Yeah.
That's where you have to draw a massive line and be like, maybe we shouldn't develop this. But
that's why we've got ESRB ratings. But like, when GTA 5 came out, I was sitting on the bus going to my local game shop to go buy my copy, and I was sitting next to a mum, and her like, he must have been maybe about 8 years old, and she was telling him how she was going to go buy him GTA 5, and I'm like, you really don't want your kid playing that game. Like,
I hate it so much because parents don't even bother, and they rage and rage about violence in video games causing people like, no, it's the moron parents giving these 18+ games to their 7-year-olds or their 8-year-olds.
You see them
like, why would you do that?
You see them on the news all the time, sort of saying that, you know, video games are damaging our children. It's like, hang on, like, right, they're playing Call of Duty. It's like, okay, it's an 18. Your kid's 13. How did he get the game? Oh, I bought it for him for Christmas. Well, there you go. Then you bought it for him. It's this right there.
You don't like load up porn onto the computer and say, "Here you go, son, Christmas present," because that's inappropriate. It's unbelievably inappropriate. And it's exactly the same with video games.
The other problem you've got outside of that, like for instance, taking a few examples from like real life experiences and real life friends, families, a lot of the kids are very knowledgeable and they realize what's reality and what's fiction.
Yeah.
And this is where you have to like, it's not just the fact that they bought them the game, it's that they haven't educated them in the whole like, this is a video game, this isn't real life, this is not how you should act. Whereas like, I mean, I played my fair share of 18s when I, grew up, but I understood that it was not real. It was fiction in entire. I mean, it looked very realistic. Well, say for PS1 graphics, but it is realistic. But yeah, it's that whole education process is not there. Like I think all of us, is like if we became parents, we would understand that whole concept and probably wouldn't be too fussed about our kids having certain games. Yeah. But yeah, again, some parents just haven't got that knowledge.
We've all been there as kids. I remember, like, I think it was a Command and Conquer game I wanted to get, and it was like a 16+ something, and I like sort of just went, oh yeah, Mum, I know, it's fine, no, 16, but I know the stuff, and it's not real and stuff like that. As long as as long as you've got some sort of like education there, they're not going to be like, right, okay, you're not going to go outside and jump in a tank and start blowing stuff up. It's kind of fine, because I guess it's like you're not like you with the age rating though. It's like if you go into a cinema and it's an 18 rated film, like they're gonna obviously be there checking your ticket, and like if they see it's a 12-year-old, they're gonna be like, no, off you go, sort of thing. But with games, somebody else can buy the game for you and give it to you. There's no one there coming around your house once you've got the game and going, right, just doing a quick age check before you log in.
Yeah, that's
give the Kinect a chance. Give Xbox One give it its dues. It's gonna start doing that fairly soon.
Yeah.
That's actually quite frustrating. I've got a friend who works in game retail, and we've had quite a lot of 18 games come out over the past 6 months or so. And she's actually been told that if she has a customer coming in and she knows that the adult is buying the game for a minor and it's an 18 rated game, she's not actually allowed to refuse the sale because
allowed
the
to
person
refuse.
buying it is 18.
Yeah.
She can only refuse it if it's actually the minor trying to buy it. But if she knowingly knows it's an adult buying it for a minor, she's not allowed to stop. Whereas, like, for example, cigarettes, we can reject a
Yeah,
sale.
same with alcohol and
Yeah,
knives.
same with alcohol. Yeah,
Mm.
I was gonna say yeah.
Well, it's like that whole. I mean, I know a few mates who've done this, work in the same like sort of profession, and they do say like you do know this is an 18 rated game. Obviously, if they have the minor with them, so that's where you get the whole like it might try and implant a seed, but a lot of the time they don't care. They're just like just give it to the kid to shut them up.
Yeah.
But the one thing I don't know if you ever noticed is with films that a lot of the time it's a circle with a red and then the 18 or the 15 or 16. On some games, you don't see that. You see a square with a 16 plus. Now, I remember being quite close with a friend who worked at games, and he was saying, like, to be honest, like, I think a lot of the time, if it was a square with a 16 in it, like just a black and white 16, I could buy that game if I was under 16. It's only the circle one, the PEGI rated ones, that are like, you have to be the age of. So this is where it's like a massive, like, because some games are just rated differently in different ways due to
one of them's kind of like a suggestion, whereas the other ones are like a kind of a legitimate enforced age rating sort of thing.
Yeah,
I've heard stories of kids trying to convince their parents, no, Mom, the 16 means it's 16 players, not that you have to be 16 to play it.
Oh, I didn't think of that one.
Yeah.
I remember the first 18 plus game I ever got, it must have been when I was about 13 or so, but my dad bought it and said, right, I don't really know whether you should be playing this, so I'm going to play it for 2 hours before you can even look at it, just to make sure it's okay. I'm like, that's not insane, like that's something the parents should be doing. It's just a bit, to be honest, it's lazy, he's downright lazy to not give a crap about what you're buying your child.
Yeah.
You wouldn't let them watch an 18 plus movie without knowing what content is in the movie. Just like you don't let them go on the internet without knowing like what's there and putting parental controls and stuff on there. It just seems bad. It seems very bad to just not even bother to check what your child is doing.
I mean, it's like the whole having a TV in your room. That was always the argument in my house. It was just like, you can't have a TV in your room. And it's just like, meh. It's just like, now it's like a standard.
Yeah. There was something you mentioned earlier, Lumpy, which I thought was quite interesting, was like PS1 graphics. And I, whenever I have this discussion with people in like kind of my age group, we always kind of come up with, well, when I was a kid, I was playing 18 plus games and my mum knew that I could handle it, and like it's just like discretion and like being mature and stuff. But the thing is, back then for us, the graphics were like Lara Croft had like triangle boobs, like like that's just like that's the generation we're from. But now we've got kids, like when we were 8 years old, the graphics weren't very realistic, but now we've got 8-year-olds who've got things like, well, as I mentioned before, GTA 5, like, and like other games where the people look super realistic, and like to the point where sometimes, like in the full motion videos, it actually looks like a real person, and like that could also be like an issue now, as games are getting more and more advanced and more realistic. Like, should people be cracking down more on stuff like that?
Massively disagree. The whole idea of games are getting so realistic that you can't work out you're playing a video game or you can't discern it from reality, for me is just totally, it doesn't work. I mean, video games will always feel like a video game. I mean, maybe in the far future where like the total reality thing is totally took over not only what you're seeing but your entire, like, all your senses. At that point, that debate could have some merit, but just because right now you're playing on your Xbox or on your PC and the game looks kind of like real life doesn't mean you cannot work out that you're playing a video game. Now, when they argue that right now, especially in games, I don't think it has any credence. The only time it does is when it's the person themselves is slightly more susceptible to stuff. But then, that argument isn't anything to do with video games and how realistic they are. That's just how some people experience video media in general. Films and TV series would have the exact same effect. And radio made people go nuts and run out of houses and drive to the hills because they thought aliens were invading at one point.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, it's not because radio is sinful and dangerous, it's just because how some people relate to what they're getting. And in most cases, everyone is aware that what they're playing is a video game. Now, everyone's talking about games they played where we were quite violent. I was 8 years old, 9 years old. I was playing Carmageddon, and I mean the original Carmageddon, the ones where it was you're running over grannies and policemen and scoring points for it. And was I able to work out that I was in a game? At no point did I think it was ruined. At no point would I think, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stick a blade on my car and run people over.
Yeah.
Obviously, like, this is, like, you know, really, really rare circumstances, and it's mostly media. Like, because I think in this room, we're all gamers, and, like, we all kind of, like, you know, think the whole violence video games thing is mostly bull, but this is, like, from the media's perspective, like, what are they going to start saying? But
it's always scaremongering, and that's what it'll always be. And
No,
especially
the
with something
media.
that's aimed at children, is especially going to get that. And something it's easy for children to get a hold of, even more so. So it's just going to be there forever. It's never going away.
Just with the media, the very sky could be falling and they'd still be going on about Justin Bieber's DUI. So they're just not reliable. And I'm
whatever
more
sells papers.
concerned. I'm more concerned about the gullible morons who watch it and think, yeah, they're right, because it's just.
I mean, straight into like the media's perception of gaming, which is generally where everyone gets their horror stories from. End of the day, majority of that media anyways dying out, and everyone's moving on to things like Reddit. Things like Reddit are the future for a lot of these news channels, I think. I don't know. I think that from now on, majority of news companies can do nothing but cause fear-mongering. And that's just the way it works.
I mean, like, even
Not
now,
conspiracy theories, it's just the way it seems to go.
Even now, if my parents see something on the news about like a video game or something, because they'll come talk to me and they'll be like, have you seen this latest thing about this horrible video game? I'm like, it's not the video game, it's let's look at the person here, and it's like, sometimes they say, oh, he had like a, he had some sort of like sometimes like a mental illness or something like that, and just went totally off the rails there. And it's the first thing they say is like video game kills or something like that, and it's like, no, it's not, because it's not like the actual disc flew out and like sliced open someone's neck or something like that. Like, go disc, go.
Yeah.
But it's frustrating because it's kind of like always there's like those. Kind of like those telling offs you get at school, where like the teacher would come in and say, it's like, we know it's not the majority, it's just a couple of you, and it is. It's just like a couple that like that's what the media picks up. You rarely see like the media going, this video game did something like really great, like all the charity like stuff that video games do, like all the money that's raised, or like, as we were saying earlier, the stuff that peripheral makers are making for people that are like disabled and like can track their eye movement and stuff. That is fantastic stuff. And I would just say this one really briefly because Dogbert will like it. But for Rome 2, there was actually a Make-A-Wish Foundation guy that got taken to Creative Assembly Studio in Horsham, and they completely mocapped him, and they put him in the game as a general. And I've actually had him be able to recruit in the game, and it's fantastic because this guy is living on through the game. And it's just like that kind of thing is like fantastic, and that's the kind of stuff the media needs to show, I think, a little bit more about games. It's not all the doom and gloom, and it's some fantastic stories like that.
Definitely.
Haven't watched the news enough, have you?
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. We had, I think, Skype decided to have a little bit of a blip for me and Neca. It decided to cause quality issues, but we're back. And I think we ended on quite a nice topic of Make-A-Wish. Shout out to Make-A-Wish, by the way. Shout out to Make-A-Wish. So we were talking. What were we talking? We were talking about some dark stuff, I believe. We were talking about some like proper. I don't know where
weaponization of video gaming. Was that?
Yes,
that's where it was at one point.
That's where it began.
Well, we just ended this game, obviously. Actually, just in the news because they just put money behind a tournament. I'm a big fan of the book, and it prophesized a few things, especially drones and kind of children, not in warfare, but the idea of something that they would conceive as a game being used as something that could be transitioned over to the military. And that's an everyday reality in a way now. I mean, war games we've had a recruitment tool from the American Army being a very successful video game in American armies. And that's been around since 2000, 2002 or something, 2003. To video games being used as training tools for armies, Flashpoint, or Armor 3, Armor 2. Those kind of games get used these days to teach small scale like stuff, but it's a video game at the end of the day, and it's been used to teach people to fight wars. And then team tactics and so on, stuff that's done every day by like competitive players and so on. At the end of the day, there's not that much dissimilar from what they're doing and practicing and so on from squad-based tactics in real war situations. Now, are they anything like that? No, but they're learning the same kind of skills, communication, teamwork, and so on.
There's even a crossover in just things that are completely unrelated. Like I used playing League of Legends, I went and watched my brother's hockey game, and I could tell him exactly what every single one of those players was doing wrong, just from having played League of Legends. Like, none of them were working together, the positioning was completely retarded, and all that kind of stuff, and you can just tell that from playing a game that's got absolutely nothing to do with the sports. There's a huge crossover, just in video games to real life, in sports at the very least. Yeah, especially, yeah.
But I mean, it's also, then you have the other aspects of what video games can do. So here's the negative. The one thing everyone talks about is they don't talk about video games and how well, they do, especially how it like affects children and so on. But the other one is the buzzword that gets thrown is like it makes a video game, war is like a video game, or vice versa. Like this keyword, like this is what's happening now. People don't feel like they're in a conflict zone. They feel like they're at home playing on their Xbox. And that's how it is, in a way. I mean, no way can they feel that they're not, like, aiming at real people or whatever. I don't know exactly how they feel, but I'm sure they can't be that desensitized. But the keyword is that it's like a video game. And then you got the other end of it, obviously children playing a game which now people are doing as their full-time job to drop bombs somewhere. So it's coming together in a kind of very creepy and weird way. Is your webcam? Yeah, your webcam's gone again, Mecca. There's nothing you can do. Yeah. You're forever going to be doomed. But then you've got video games as a teaching tool, and a very good one, and something which, especially with you, Lionheart, I mean, I got very interested in a lot of historical subjects through certain video games. Civilization, Total War, two of the big ones there.
Yeah, I got to admit, I mean, I got really into my history because of Total War, because it just, like, obviously they're not like full-on historical simulators, but they get you to a certain level, so it makes you interested in finding out what else was going on in that period that you're playing in. And actually, for one of my university presentations, I actually threw in some clips of a Medieval 2 like battle, and my lecturers went mental seeing it all like 3D and visuals, and they were just like, "That's amazing! How did you do that?" And I was just like, "It's just a game," but it's a brilliant tool, and there's so much that can be used there.
It's especially like Time Commanders, for example. Anyone who's seen that? Like BBC program that would teach people. It would use the Total War engine, but it would then bring in military historians, and then it would just put these random people who might have, you know, school teachers and their students, and then be like, right, you two are going to be lieutenants, and you tell these people what you want to do, and these two guys up there, they're gonna come up with a grand strategy, and here's a historical scenario. Go. And it's very few times that you could ever make that appealing to watch. And first, the appealing thing would be the situation they're in and how they communicate. But then the fact that for the first time ever, you're able to watch something that really would only have been done in Hollywood movies or so on. And anyone can do it. And it is like a teaching tool. Civilization is a brilliant one. And it's... I think they try and make teaching games now, and they're horrible. Because they're trying to just be one thing, and they haven't got that bit of fun in it.
When you can get a better teaching experience out of Minecraft, and I know teachers who have taught using Minecraft, no teaching program is ever going to reach that level. It's never going to become as good.
All I'm saying, Zoom Beanies, best teaching game ever made. If anyone knows what the Zoom Beanies is, you're hardcore, man.
What is the Zoom Beanies?
The Zoom Beanies was a basic game where you play, you create a number of Zoom Beanies. These little creatures, these little blue creatures that are like sort of more like modified Smurfs, They're like you could put like roller skates on them and like jumping springs and all this stuff. They look like Zebedee out of like the Magic Roundabout. Was amazing. But the whole idea of it was like they've lost their home to these like evil creatures and they have to find a new one. And your job is to get them through this map to the end. And then like the whole goal is you have to keep doing these sort of different mini games like addition, like picture recognition, just stuff like that. Like very, very primitive stuff, but it was really fun as a game just to teach you like basic. This is like primary school level stuff.
Yeah.
But
Actually,
Zoom Beanies was awesome.
I had my my secondary school physics teacher. He actually, when like towards the end of a lesson, like the last 20 minutes, he'd always load up. He was a huge fan of flight simulators and things like that, and he'd always load one of those up and just combine that with like learning about like forces and things like that. And okay, maybe flight simulators aren't necessarily the most exciting games, but it was still an interesting way of like something really visual that was there and easy to use and easy to show in a teaching sort of environment how it all worked.
What's that? The space game, but NASA's now kind of making levels for
Kerbal.
Yeah.
Moonbase Alpha? Oh,
No,
cool,
they did that as well, and obviously that's played quite a bit. But they put some funding behind a DLC for a mission to land. Is it land a man on an asteroid or a comet?
Something like that, yeah.
Well, they
Try and
got
bring
the
it back.
drone. They've got the drone, which is going to land on an asteroid.
There is an
I think
actual
that's
manned
not
mission
so.
to do this though, to like
Oh,
try
really?
and land on a comet, not a comet, an asteroid,
Asteroid.
and try and
That's
tow it
gonna end
back. Well, they need to do something because they ain't going to go on Mars.
Yeah.
But they're
Yeah.
using something which is quite popular and is a video game and is teaching. Well, I guess it's teaching. I don't know, physics, rocketry, and it's doing a very good job because loads of people can, as fun, just get involved in it, and through that, it's a gateway into more serious stuff. And that's what some games are turning into. They start out as just being fun, and that's where you come from. And you can add in the harder bits if that's part of a key gameplay experience.
There's just that part of learning where you can actually apply it to a situation that you're currently looking at, is that it makes a learning experience so much more significant. Like when you have a concept and it's being told to you and you have no idea what it's supposed to be, where it's come from, what it's supposed to do, how it does it. It's just mind-boggling in some cases. Like imaginary numbers and complex numbers doesn't make any sense because it's imaginary and there's no situation that you can actually apply it to and be able to make sense, or at least I can't. But that when you have that, then you can see, oh right, if I apply this force to this rocket with this much weight in it, and the fuel has this much weight, and and then it makes sense exactly
such
why you're
great
doing
visual learning tools.
Exactly,
so it's just like why not use them? Because as you said, that you can, if you look into some of these games, there's so many kind of like little hidden kind of teaching experiences that the teachers can create out of them. And as you said, like all the teachers that are kind of innovating and using games because they know they're popular with the kids. They know that, you know, it's always comes up as like always like a struggle to connect with like the next generation and stuff, or like use what they like, use what they enjoy, which is games.
I can't remember where I heard this. It was like a quote from somewhere, and it was like the sort of, it's like one of those like a great teacher teaches like this and stuff like that. And like the best teacher or something creates inspiration, like teaches inspiration and creativity, like not necessarily like reciting things out of a manual or back to a book, but like creating some way for someone else in that people in that class to think differently and be more be inspiring rather than being just a teacher. I wish my teachers had that sort of thing at school because a lot of them were rubbish. But
it's generation gaps, and I think that's a big thing.
Yeah.
I think I loved my history teacher because she made us watch Blackadder for
so did mine.
It was a brilliant tool, and everyone loved it, and it was fun. It didn't feel like you were being taught something, but you were. And as soon as teaching doesn't feel like teaching to someone, then they're going to take it in a lot better.
Yeah.
Because it's not forced, for example, and that's a really good thing.
It's like work. If it doesn't feel like work, it's so much easier. It's just everything. Like when you make it something that you enjoy, especially with teaching. You're right, definitely.
I mean, certain games kind of just repeat the same thing over and over again. That's fine. And like, and me and Lightheart maybe will have a circle jerk over this, but we really like Total War, yeah. But Total War is doing the same periods quite regularly. That's fine, and it's great. But for someone who would also like to learn about other stuff, but in the confines of a gaming environment, so I would like something on China, for example, because I know basic stuff on Chinese history, but it's almost as vast as the entire European and African and Middle Eastern history put together. It's vast. It's 5,000 years old. But you don't get video games about Asia which isn't done by Asians, really.
Yeah.
I've got a few friends who are studying like kind of Asian history degrees.
Japanese history, please.
Japanese and Chinese, but also they love the Dynasty Warrior games, and they love like the Sengoku Basara games and stuff because it's actually based on the real kind of like
Three Kingdoms stuff.
Like like the kind of like the generals from back then, and it means when you're reading these massive textbooks and you're like see Hideyoshi all the time and you're like, who the hell is this guy? But like when you can associate him like with this character you played in a game, and then in the game he interacts with other characters, and like it helps you kind of link it all up. So it's kind of cool that video games can kind of help give us that visualization, as you're saying earlier,
just
about making those connections.
Going back to Rome 2, I knew nothing about the Punic Wars before Rome 2 came out, and
actually.
Now I know far more than I ever had any desire to know about the Punic Wars.
I mean, I've focused in kind of like a medieval specialization, so like the Roman period, I've always just kind of associated that with like awesome legionaries. They look amazing and look badass, but I've never actually looked at the history behind it. And obviously, like going off and like doing a degree and just really enjoying my history, and then finding like a game with a brand new kind of historical period that I haven't looked into is just kind of like a massive bonus, because it's just like I can learn about this and enjoy it and play the game at the same time. And I think you're saying about how you can like interact sometimes like with these historical characters, and sometimes like the Assassin's Creed games, obviously that whole storyline just goes off wherever it wants to, but the fact that you can kind of interact like with some of these characters and like visualize them a little bit, and kind of be like some of the landscapes and the cities that they recreate, that is a fantastic way to see kind of like Assassin's Creed 2, like looking at Renaissance Florence and stuff like that. That is a fantastic 3D model of that period and that city at that time.
Did one of them go to Constantinople, or am I just going insane?
Oh yeah, what was that? The last Ezio one.
Was it like Brotherhood or something like that? Or was it something?
I thought that was
wasn't it?
Vatican, wouldn't? Either way, no, stuff like that is like you just get taught a lesson, like, but then you have these kind of certain views that come out. So let's take, for example, Total War, because it's an easy one. Has a very kind of Western focus on how everything kind of went out, and a very, very kind of British focus in a way. And a lot of games are kind of like, and I get it, and it's very easy to do, but because of world history and kind of how it's developed, you always have these people in the background say this isn't really what happened, or it happened a bit differently, and they don't focus on us, or they just don't care about us. So I think that's why I'd like to see something over in China, but at the same time. Sometimes certain periods of history, for example, go down better in the sales wise, and you got to focus on that sometimes. At the end of the day, it's still a game, it's still a product, it's still something they want you to pay money to play. So I think like Empire came out, and it very much focused on like European, but more importantly America as well. And
there's
a lot of cynical people who were like, oh, they only did it to get the Americans on board.
Crazy. Fair enough. History lessons with ReadyUpTV.
Well, you'll get them if you ever start pushing with me.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the interesting thing, like for me, not talking about history, but talking about me and how video games has helped me. I wanted to probably have gone and done a history degree, but I didn't, because I'm a dyslexic. I really struggle with spelling and writing, and it's just difficult. I can read, but not great. But through video games, I've been able to do a lot of stuff which I wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. Typing and talking to people quite regularly, having to basically to get anything I want to talk about where I'm not talking to them over TeamSpeak or whatever, and back before you had TeamSpeak you didn't have anything, I would have to get used to typing. Now I can type without looking at anything I'm doing, and like literally can do something completely different while typing, and it's something I've just developed because, well, I know the pattern now. And if it wasn't for video games, I have no idea how I'd be able to like keep up with anything.
I have a friend whose sole purpose for learning to read was so he could play Pokemon. That's how he learned
That's
to
an
read.
awesome goal,
Playing
though.
Pokemon.
It's like,
Respect
It wasn't,
to that guy.
yeah. Like that's how he
spell them all.
learned to read. It was just
Got to
just
spell
playing
them all.
Pokemon.
Did he do the Pokemon rap but spell it? Like
I was bringing it back to when we were talking about exercise at the start, like motivation and something like to keep you going, and it just links into the whole teaching experience. It's just such a great way of like motivating people to learn something new or learn something different, or to help people understand it and help it like settle in, and so you actually learn something out of it.
Yeah. Kind of like back onto the topic of the future of gaming. One of the kind of more recent things, so not so recent because we've had the PlayStation Eye, but is like the motion capture, which is slightly different from the augmented reality and the Oculus Rift we've been talking before. But the kind of the PlayStation 4 camera. A lot of people have been playing what's it called, Dance Central with it. And I know a lot of people who used like mainly friends who like to go out clubbing and stuff, and like they get really excited about this game because like they'd love to be able to like show off on the dance floor and be able to do like the proper moves for a song when they're out like socializing, but they would never actually have the motivation to like sit down in front of YouTube and like try to learn it. But by playing a game like Dance Central, like I've got this one friend who loves the song Poison. I can't remember who it's by, but it's sung by like Turk in Scrubs, so he loves that song. But anyway, he goes to clubs now, and he does the whole song with like the hand movements and everything, and he's learned it because of the motion capture on his PlayStation. No, actually no, it was Xbox that had it. Whatever, it doesn't matter. But yeah, so basically it's cool that the technology that's coming out is allowing us to try different things. So instead of just learning math or just learning history or just learning English through games, we're now also learning kind of body movements, so dance and sports. Like I know the Wii is quite simplified with like, I'm swinging a baseball bat. But like as motion capture develops more, we're going to hopefully have even cooler things. So we could actually be, developing proper, baseball techniques in our living room without even owning a baseball bat, as this technology kind of develops. Yeah, exactly.
Rocksmith,
Subject.
that game is awesome.
Yeah.
Rocksmith looks amazing. It's like for a person who like tried playing guitar like in primary school and then actually like everyone, I haven't played an instrument before, but like Rocksmith is one of those things that it's like it takes a very mundane, like a lot of teaching. Like this is where does like computers become like they take over some jobs, like rather than just sort of like making games, but also like just outside of their own sort of industry. But like the teaching method for Rocksmith is ingenious. It's just incredible. Like if I had that as a kid, I'd be like Jimi Hendrix by now.
It all comes back to something you've already said. As soon as you make something not feel like you're like working or learning, it works. And that's the best way to do it. And I think it's only a matter of time, but like gaming especially, I mean, our generation would be the ones that dealt with it more than probably the previous. Well, actually saying that, it's probably been something pretty much since gaming's been around. It'll become more acceptable as our generation your generation above us takes over. But right now, it's still going to be like enemy number one. It doesn't.
We're all going to be in that retirement home together, playing games. So
land retirement home.
This is the other thing, though. There's one thing that they have to cure before we can do anything at old age: arthritis. Because to be honest, we're all screwed. Like we're all done.
Mocap, it's K.
There was a really good article in PC Gamer like back in the day, and it was about how gaming has affected our bodies, negative mostly, and had some gruesome images of like a guy who's like hand had become a mouse and all that, and it was really good, and it wasn't a pretty read from someone who spends as much time as I did, and it like posture, like the back issues is a common thing in a lot of pro games. Hand issues is a ridiculous one. Like lots of pro gamers literally like wrist problems like no other, and I'm sure there's a joke in there, but it's an issue, and especially if you don't like a lot of pro gaming teams have started to notice that, and like the idea of making people go to the gym or at least telling them to like look after yourself, don't just like play 8 hours, eat junk food, do nothing, and play the game. It's not going to end up better for you, and more importantly, like it doesn't do great things for your concentration either. And I think that's something that's only starting to really be understood now.
I remember when like games actually came with like chunky manuals, that like the back page
God, yeah.
would have like 3 pages to like the proper back posture, and it would always have that thing. It's like, always remember to have a break every like 45 minutes or an hour and go for like a 15-minute walk.
Yeah, they never played the games I played. It was just like, have a 45-minute break when you play Civilization. How? One more turn.
I'm being attacked.
I'll stop in 200 turns, then I'll go have a walk around for a bit and come back.
Same with Total War. I can't leave. I'm being attacked.
Yeah.
I've got a problem where I'm currently in a student accommodation, and I want the proper chair, but all they will give me is this piece of crap, and it doesn't even work.
That's a
More
premium
social
student chair.
commentary with,
Exactly.
Has it got
and
like a missing as well?
like, pardon?
Has it got like a chunk missing out the corner? Because all good student chairs have like
Yeah, definitely. But like like last year and the year before, even in the house I was living before now, I had like proper back chairs, and they were actually really decent. And this particular house is awful. Like the wheels don't even move properly because they're all clogged up with someone's hair from whoever lived here before me. It's a bit.
Delicious.
And when I asked them to come around and replace it because it's old and crap and the pneumatic thing doesn't even work, they just looked at it and said, "That was not supposed to be in here. That's not supposed to be in here at all. That's not the one we put in here." And what they actually put in here was a metal frame, static piece of crap chair that was just the worst thing I'd ever seen. I thought my back would break if I sit on that for any more than 10 minutes. My back hurts all the time just because I'm on this chair for so long each day. And if nothing else, it's not because I'm playing games, it's because I'm working for university. And it's just insane that so many things require computers. They require computers for you to live, for you to function, for you to work, for you to play, for you to do everything, and like proper health and safety just is ignored. Like, you need to have your monitors at a specific height, you need to have your arms in a specific way, you need a decent chair. That's the facts of living now, especially with offices and computers, and people just ignore it, and it's insane that they do it. Like,
It's interesting to see all the like extra peripherals though that are made for that. I mean, I've seen like it's something like a wrist rest you can attach to your desk to like give yourself a wrist support so that you don't like ache your arms.
I've seen mouse pads which are literally wrist rests to the 2 breasts of a picture of a woman on the mouse pad. Those are brilliant. I haven't got one, but yeah.
You get those at anime conventions.
You probably would.
Speaking of ignoring health and safety, I
Because
recently
that's where the fun stuff comes in.
I recently quit Animal Crossing. It was a really
It's
sad
a health
day.
and safety concern, is it?
Yeah.
Well, I stopped playing it for a week, and then one of my favorite villagers moved out, so I was like, you know what, screw this. But one of the things I used to notice when I played it, if I played it for more than like 45 minutes or an hour, sometimes I'd go up to a villager, and instead of them telling me some random quote that they'd normally say, they were saying, "You've been playing for quite a long time, maybe you should take a break." And it's kind of weird how like games are starting to incorporate these like kind of like real life like breaking the fourth wall type of like things.
It's not a bad idea, but at the same time, you're just like, go jump off a cliff. I'm playing my video
busy
games.
here,
The weird thing is actually a lot of from a lot of people I've seen like in the gaming community, like you have these plateaus where like, I mean, our Lord and Savior Odie has now gone to this plateau, but he's like, where this whole like, you have these gamers, right, and then at the top of the gamers you have all these really fit looking, like just ridiculously like worked out people, and then like down the queue you've got like these people who are like, I could do this, I really should, but meh. Like, it's just like, it's one of those things. It's quite interesting where like you look at these gamers that are idolized, or like sort of they have a following, and they do take care of themselves, and then they always go on about how like working out makes them focus much more on the game, and it does to a degree. No, they do. I mean, like, I can see where having a that whole healthy body, healthy mind sort of thing comes into play, but like, a lot of me is like,
It's also
what can you do when you've got an inbox full of Domino's pizza coupons?
got to be used. You're wasting paper. I'd rather save the trees, man.
No, I think there's a lot of truth in it though.
Oh God, yeah.
Like a massive amount of truth, because the more confident you are, not only in how you fit your body or anything, the much less likely you are to give up on things, and that's something, especially in gaming, it does come up quite a bit.
You see, I
it's Jamie's like nah.
No, I just disagree.
Stone Cold
because like I used to do karate, like I did it for 3 years, and I stopped because I was bored, because I just got so bored of it because it didn't occupy me mentally, And then I haven't quit games because there's something new. Like it occupies my mind, and that's like I don't really do much physical stuff because it's boring to me. I get really bored. Like I played football, it's boring. Honest to God, like I used to actually be moderately okay at football or rugby or whatever, and I just got so bored playing it because it's just felt like the same thing over and over again. And to me, and I don't give up on things, but at the same time, I don't really do that much. I don't purposely go out and run for 3 hours or whatever and keep my body in tip-top physical condition, as you can probably quite plainly see. But at the same time, I don't like give up on everything I start to do just because I'm overweight and because I'm not healthy.
Ooh.
Like I just don't think it's that intrinsic.
Yeah, I don't think it's like across the board. I just think it in some cases.
Okay.
It's definitely something there in it. It's not just like it's just maybe that happens, but no.
I understand there's an element of looking after yourself,
especially I think if we're going to get onto like pro players and so on, keeping to schedules and so on, I think is very important, very good for them. But I mean. When you're talking about people who do esports, you're pretty much talking about someone who should be pretty much doing some sort of have a set schedule. They're kind of an athlete in their own way, so I don't know. But I know what you mean. I'm not saying you're just completely incapable of doing things.
We were talking about pro players having problems with like arthritis. Well, not arthritis yet, but like carpal tunnel and like kind of things like that. And that kind of reminds me of something I saw just last week. There's this new. I don't know how long it's been out for, but this is new mocap software, which is like it's like a small pen drive that like sits like on your desk, and then you can put your hand above it, and it like mocaps the movements of your hand, and it's like really really detailed to the point where like it'll pick up each of your fingers and how high you lift it and where you move it and stuff. And it's interesting that they're developing like technology like that. I think it's called iLeap. And it costs about £70, but it's a little bit limited at the moment.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's like what's it called? Oh my god, I literally looked at it on the Zone. I'm going to find that out because I know exactly what you're talking. I cannot from Leap Motion. That's the one. Leap Motion. That's it. Leap Motion. Oh, I remember that. Yeah. That's interesting.
Is that the one I saw? Like someone was using their hand in one point, it was picking up the motion, and then on a little desk next to them, there was like a sort of pillars that would move as if it was his hand, so he could move his hands around like that. And on this thing, it would keep a ball in the same area that his hands were cupped in.
Yeah, the one I saw was where like you could move your hand and like you'd grab something with your hand. And then on the screen there was like a glowing ball, and like you grab that, and then you could like drag it across, and then like you could open up your hand, and it would like let go on the screen.
I was talking about something physical, not a screen.
Oh, cool! Yeah.
Yeah,
it's really
interesting too. The Leap Motion's also, it was quite cool. I don't know how when I first saw it, it was very primitive. The drivers weren't all there, so I don't know if it's changed since then. But yeah, it looked quite cool when I first saw it.
Yeah. But it's interesting, like as like mocap becomes even more and more detailed and can pick up the more slightest actions, like pressing down your finger and stuff. Because like at the moment, the mocap that we mostly use, like on our PlayStations and our Xboxes and stuff, is kind of like you can wave your entire arm and it just about picks it up, kind of thing. But like it's cool that's starting to get so detailed to the point where like, as we were talking before about like educational tools and like learning things, like we could end up having like surgery simulators. Like I know we've got like what's the game called?
Surgeon Simulator.
Yeah, 2013. Like that's like a bit kind of like the baby stage of this, but like we could actually have something where like gamers are learning how to do like open heart surgery, and then like,
there's have you seen that mocap software being developed at the moment, which is sort of high-end mocap for webcams? And it picks up everything on your face, and it can map all of your expressions to a virtual thing. And there was like a fox kind of Captain Fox kind of thing, and it was like it mapped it really well. Like all the emotions of the face, you could get it all in there, and it worked really well. And you're just going to see people on shows like this, all foxes and animals.
Oh,
we've
lost Mecca.
He's dead.
But yeah, on that topic, I actually had software similar to that on my laptop, which unfortunately I don't have with me today. But yeah, it's super creepy. Like you could like have like an alien head, and you'd smile, and it would smile. And
weird.
Like, really creepy.
The ultimate question is, what does the fox say?
What does the fox say?
Shut up.
Had to drop that in there.
Shut up.
And that's how we segue to the end of the show.
Before the last bit, I gotta say this. If I found someone was about to do surgery on me and they learnt it, or even in any point had used Surgeon Simulator, I would rather not have them operating on me.
Hey,
I've seen some stuff
show.
out of that game.
You can imagine.
No way.
Statistics show that surgeons make less mistakes if they're also gamers.
Yeah.
Not if they're playing
Well,
Surgeon
that's
Simulator by the looks of it.
Yeah.
You just
Crack your
imagine
ribcage
you're
open. Yeah.
being wheeled into the operation room and you just see a chainsaw, various other saws, hammers, and you're like, what's gonna happen to me?
Demand to see like their Steam profile or something. And, like, if you don't have more than 2,000 hours in this game, you're not alled to operate on me.
You must have all achievements and 200 hours played. Like,
What level are you on?
yeah, exactly right.
That would end in death, I'm pretty sure.
That would end in
Just-
various means of death.
You just
Then they
in
could
the
make a
post-
DLC level out of your operation.
in the operation room, and you're just about to go in, and the surgeon just goes on your face.
The one thing they could do is they could like start like, you know, when they have the screen, the divider screen, and they show you, well, like in some operations, like for instance a hernia or something,
Yeah.
they show you what they're doing on a camera on a screen. Imagine they just replace it with like a realistic version of Surgeon Simulator. We don't need this.
You know, they've got the
Throw
brain
it.
surgery one in Surgeon Simulator.
Yeah.
For brain surgery, they have to keep you awake so that they can keep talking to you and ask
yeah.
you
Oh my God.
and make sure nothing's gone wrong. Can you imagine? This is just and he's just like, right, let's just remove all of it and
Yeah, just
replace
like,
it.
no.
Imagine that, like, I just can't imagine, like, mad and tangent, but like, if you're having brain surgery and you're just talking and then suddenly, like, they hit the Spanish bit and it's like you start speaking in Spanish. I know that's so wrong, and like that's like literally probably insulted like so many people, like in terms of like just general knowledge, but like it would be amazing if literally in parts of your brain you could like do bits to it and you start like speaking Korean and all this other crazy stuff. That'd be awesome.
There, sorry, this is really off topic, but there is actually, I can't remember. I read this in a newspaper like years ago. There was some guy who like went into a coma, and like he'd never spoken French in his life, but then when he came out of the coma, he was like fluent in French. Like,
I call
I don't know,
BS on
maybe
that.
brains do work like that.
That does seem a bit weird.
I call
Yeah.
BS on that, because how would he even know French if he'd never spoken it at all? You don't just pick up an alien language. I can't speak Klingon, and I probably heard it a lot more than that guy might have done French. Doesn't mean just because you hit me hard enough or you open my brain up, I'm going to start speaking Klingon. Well, I'd like that quite a lot. It'd be good fun.
That'd be amazing.
The
Order a
accent
pint
one,
Klingon.
I can understand the accent one because that's just like messing up the way you move your mouth. But speaking a completely different language that you've never been able to speak before is just like, wait, what? That's just no way did you do that?
Maybe brain surgery simulators onto something. Who knows?
I don't know. But I think that about wraps us up on these lovely tangents that we go to before we start going into just disarray and talk about everything
I
around it.
think
No,
I
we've
mean,
ignored
we've
that.
gone past disarray. We're getting towards
Yeah.
just madness. But yeah, okay, I think that about wraps it up for this week's episode of Ready Up. I mean, this is episode 3, the future of technology and gaming, which was kind of decayed into randomness. But hey ho, who cares? Exactly. So thank you everyone for watching. I just want to say a massive shout out to Alienware because they do sponsor the show, and without them, obviously this wouldn't happen. But so massive shout outs to them and everyone also for coming on. If you've got any shout outs, guys, we'll go from the top right all the way down to the top left. So Dogbert UK Offer Festivities. Any shout outs?
No
Anything you want
shout
to pimp?
Like, literally, I'll shout out to myself for being such a great guy. Hold on. Yep, and I accept those thanks, and I'll move it on to Mecca, because I'm sure he has plenty of people to talk about.
I have no one to talk about.
You're the stone cold
Talk about
Welshman.
me. Yeah, you can talk about me and how you need a better chair, apparently.
I need a better chair.
Damn
I need
you.
a lot of better things, to be honest.
Yuka, what about yourself? Any shout outs?
I'm gonna shamelessly pimp myself out. I'm about to head over to my channel, Twitch TV /YukaPants. I'm gonna be playing some Hearthstone over there and hopefully some League of Legends a little bit. So if you guys want to stick around, you can go over there and I'll be on there in a few minutes. So yeah.
Cool. And obviously, thank you, massive shout outs for you coming on today, Lionheart. It's been a pleasure. Anything you want to sort of pimp out at all? I mean, go for it.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, I'm LionheartX10 on Twitter, LionheartX10 on Twitch, LionheartX10 on YouTube. Pretty much everything LionheartX10 that I know you can have a social media account for is me. But yeah, no, just massive thanks for having me on. It's been brilliant. Really enjoyed it.
Been a really good guest. Thank you very much. Okay, guys, that about wraps up Ready Up 3. Thank you for watching, guys.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Peace.